Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie, and today we are looking at Prism Parade's upcoming Bad Reputation collection, an ode to historical figures that we were warned about who changed everything anyway. This is a 5-piece lineup featuring Prism's very first magnetic formulas, and we also have a new U-shaped magnet coming to their shop. So as always, I will save more of the information on the launch and my thoughts at the end of the video after the few comparisons that I have. For now, let me just show you the swatches. The first shade we have is Chiaroscuro, which is inspired by Leonardo da Vinci. This is named after the light and shadow Leonardo bent to his will. Chiaroscuro is a green khaki polish with electric blue magnetic shimmer, a gold shifting shimmer in the background, and holographic glitter. Overall, I definitely see the inspiration and agree with the color descriptions. I honestly was having a hard time describing the base color. I was just gonna call it like a charcoal gray. It is honestly pretty hard to see underneath all of the shimmer, but this had a beautiful formula. I loved how smooth it was and how pigmented it was, where it provided really nice coverage on the first coat, and I found it to be fully opaque for me on 2 coats. For the velvet effect, I'm going to be using Prism Parade's new U-shaped magnet, which I had a hard time taking the cover off, especially on camera. But once that's off, you just place your finger in the middle and paint your coat as normal, and also apply a top coat. You always want to make sure to magnetize your top coat to help seal in your magnetic effect. And yeah, I loved how this looked with the velvet effect, just the way the blue shimmer plays against the gold in the background. I don't normally love this color combination, but I thought it was okay in this one. Maybe it's the shade of blue that's a little more appealing to me. And here I also have the glass bead effect, which I did in 2 coats as well. Next up we have Off With Her Head, which is inspired by Anne Boleyn, the former Queen of England who was accused of awful things like adultery, incest, witchcraft, and treason, all because a powerful man wanted her gone. And sadly, but also not surprisingly, the whole world believed it. So as far as the polish goes, this is described as a shimmery fuchsia with a lime green shifting magnetic shimmer and holographic glitter. I would say formula-wise, it performed really similar to the last shade. Honestly, all of the magnetics have the same formula more or less, where they are just really fluid, smooth to apply, decently pigmented on the first coat with just enough coverage that it's pretty much fully opaque for me in 2 coats. I think maybe if you look close enough, you might see some nail line if your nails are longer, but I think these are so packed with shimmer that you don't really need a third. Next we have La Siréne, which is inspired by Josephine Baker, who became the most famous woman in the world and a spy for the French resistance. This one is described as a shimmery magenta with a purple to pink shifting magnetic shimmer and holographic glitter. I don't think the description mentions anything about the base color, at least I don't see it as magenta. I would kind of describe this again as like a charcoal color. It's just a very dark base. And the background shimmer, I think I would describe as a copper. There's some flashes of gold and green in there as well, especially in more extreme lighting. And yeah, I really love the magnetic shimmer in this, having that purple and pink color combination. I think it's so beautiful. But I found that this one was a little bit more subtle with the color contrast. The next polish we have is the Last Pharaoh, which is inspired by Cleopatra. 2,000 years of being called a seductress when she was a mathematician, a military strategist, and one of the most politically sophisticated rulers of her era. Such a beautiful tribute to Cleopatra. This polish is described as a shimmery green with a gold to orange shifting magnetic shimmer and holographic glitter. And not to sound like a broken record, but this had an another really smooth, fluid kind of formula, just nicely pigmented and easy to coder. I found this one to be super easy to magnetize as well. It was very, very reactive, which I feel like is common with a lot of more fluid kind of magnetic bases. And I think it also looked extra crisp just because of the color combination, where it's such a stark contrast between the green background and the golden copper magnetic shimmer. I will say though, I think this one maybe had the weakest multichrome shift. And rounding out the collection, we have 1,000 Ships, which is inspired by Helen of Troy. Villain, seductress, destroyer of civilizations. Or just a woman who made a choice in a world that didn't allow her any. 1,000 Ships is described as a green to blue to purple shifting magnetic shimmer with a green to blue to purple shifting chrome pigment and holographic glitter. So I personally found that this had the same formula as the other magnetics, surprise, surprise. Even though this is the only one that had that description of a chrome pigment, I'm not fully sure which one that is between the background shimmer or the magnetic. I just personally couldn't really see the chrome effect or how it was different compared to the previous magnetics, but that being said, it's still magnetized so beautifully. I loved the color combination here. I would say though, this has another somewhat subtle color contrast between the magnetic shimmer and the background shimmer because they have the same color shifts, but the color shifts are extremely shifty. And I have two collages. The first one here is the cat eye effect, again in 2 coats each. So you can see the range of colors here. While they are all very colorful and multi-chrome, they are still pretty different from each other. And I also wanted to include the collage of the glass bead. Obviously the photos don't really do it justice like the video, but I still loved it. This is probably the least amount of comparisons I have because I just don't have many multi-chrome magnetics. So starting with Chiaroscuro, the first shade I thought of was ILNP's Electroshock from the Illusions collection, I want to say. It's definitely the closest where they could be siblings, maybe cousins, because they do both have this gold to green shifting shimmer in the background and a blue magnetic pigment, but it's more of an aqua in ILNP and it shifts to a more vibrant purple, and the background shimmer is a lot more packed in Prism. Another shade I thought of was Mooncat's Curiosity's Trap, but that's kind of like the reverse color combination, and maybe it's a bit more vibrant. And I also thought of ILNP's Unraveled, which does have this gold sort of base or background shimmer, but with more of a purple magnetic pigment. Then for Off With Her Head, I pulled out ILNP's Warped and Madhouse, which I feel like are kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum, or Off With Her Head is an in-between of these two. You can see that Warped is again almost that reverse color combination where it has a green background and then a pinky purple magnetic shimmer. So the green shimmer is actually a lot more similar in Madhouse. I would say it's almost identical, being this lime green to aqua blue, but the obvious difference is the base color being a darker teal in Madhouse. For La Siréne, I was actually immediately reminded of ILNP's Misfit, which I would say has a similar color combination. Like these are probably the closest to being dupes without being exactly the same, but they have a very similar coppery, fiery orange background shimmer with a purpley pink magnetic shimmer, but I think the base in La Siréne is a little lighter. And for reference, I also have Holo Tacos Playing the Field, which is their multi-chrome magnetic, but that's a little bit different in its color combination. So here you can see even in extreme lighting, the color shifts are most similar between the ILNP and Prism. For the Last Pharaoh, I'm not sure why, but I ended up comparing it next to ILNP's Electroshock from before. I guess maybe I thought these would be like the reverse color combinations, since Electroshock again has this sort of golden background shimmer, but it's just so sparse in comparison, and the magnetic is more blue instead of green. So I actually think the Last Pharaoh is going to be much closer to something like Crack's Seek to Disrupt from their Spirit of Rebellion collection last summer. Maybe the base or the background shimmer is a bit brighter glitter in cracked, and it also has these multichrome flakes. And for another similar vibe, I have a photo of Glitch's copper bracelet from the Palestine collection, which I think has a more coppery bronze magnetic shimmer instead of gold. And lastly, for 1,000 ships, I pulled out Mooncat's 404 Soul Not Found from the Welcome to Paradise collection last summer, and What's Up Nails Night Contrails, which I always describe as like a galaxy in a bottle, but on the nail it ended up being a lot more of an ocean blue, maybe even more blue than 1,000 ships and the Mooncat, which are a bit more teal aqua in color. So I would say the magnetic shimmer in the Mooncat and Prism are almost the same. There's just no background shimmer in Mooncat. And lastly, I have a photo of ILNP's Deep Space, which is another galaxy in a bottle type of polish. I thought these were going to be kind of similar, but it's more of the background shimmer in Prism that matches the magnetic shimmer in ILNP, but they do both shift to purple, so there are some similarities, but they're not dupes. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Prism Parade's Bad Reputation collection. If you went to PBE or Polish and Beauty Expo last weekend, you may have already seen or grabbed some of these, including the magnet, but if not, these are going to be launching on July 25th. And as a reminder, I am an affiliate with Prism Parade, so I'll also have my link and discount code to save 10% off your order. Now, back to the collection. First of all, I absolutely love the theme for this lineup. I think it's just so unique, so cool. I feel like the inspiration almost has a familiar vibe to Crack's Spirit of Rebellion collection last summer, so I just really love it as a complete change of pace for summer releases. But aside from that, objectively speaking, the polishes were also just really fantastic. For being their very first magnetics, I feel like they are such an amazing formula. They were so incredibly smooth to apply, just so buttery and nicely pigmented, which if you are familiar with me and my taste when it comes to magnetics, I usually prefer something that's like a little bit more pigmented as opposed to a more sheer jelly base, even though the jelly bases tend to be better with magnetizing because they're just more fluid. It's just easier for the magnetic pigment to move around, and usually a more pigmented base can be a little bit thicker. Think brands like Mooncat or Holo Taco, where sometimes there might be some issues with magnetizing, but other brands like Cirque or ILNP that have more jelly leaning bases are a lot easier to magnetize. So I would say these remind me the most of ILNP's formulas as far as being easy to magnetize, but even more pigmented than some of those, which as you saw in the comparisons, some of the ILNP multichrome magnetics are a little bit on the sheer side on two coats. So yeah, overall, these were just really great, and I can't wait to see what other magnetics Prism Parade will come out with next. So let me know your thoughts down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!